Welcome back, and in this video we will be discussing about the unit 6, which is control application. These videos are basically part of the CIA part 1 course lectures, and in today's video we will be discussing about unit 6, which is controls application. This is a brief introduction about me and my professional career, and if you are interested in knowing more about me, you can pause this video and read it. So here we are with the entire overview of the syllabus. So far we have covered 5 units of from the GLIM book or GLIM study course, and today we will be discussing about the unit 6, which is about control application. Just to give you a snapshot of what we have covered so far and what we will be covering today, but before that, let me give you the percentage for today's unit. We will be covering somewhere 5% of the entire syllabus in today's unit, and approximately some 5 MCQs. If we proportionate according to the percentage, 5 MCQs will be coming from this unit. Well, having said that, it doesn't mean that you can ignore this chapter or you can take it lightly. Let me re-emphasize that the controls and risk are very crucial even for your understanding and passing the other MCQs as well, or choosing the right options as well. So this information is very core for internal auditor as well, in general, in terms of your practical applications of theory in your practical life, and for the exam perspective as well. So overall in CIA, as per my understanding and as per my experience, you cannot ignore anything. You cannot skip any chapter because the MCQs are all reshuffled, and every unit has interlinks with the other unit. So there is a connection, and even a lack of understanding of any unit could harm you, because you might possibly choose a wrong options related to any other unit as well. So this is overall, and after this unit we will be going through the last unit, which is about fraud, risk, and controls. So this is the overall snapshot. The control unit is basically divided into chapter 5 and chapter 6, so you can consider this overall as a 15% in terms of percentage, and overall around 18 MCQs come from the control unit. Let's go through quickly what we have covered so far. So in the first unit, foundation of internal audit, we discuss about the IPPF, the internal audit framework, which is basically divided into 2 components, mandatory and recommended, and the internal audit standards, ethics, definition, mission, and values. This is part of the mandatory, and the recommended one is supplemented or suggestive guidelines. The unit 2 is about independence, objectivity, due professional care, and quality assurance and improvement program. These are some of the key concepts and terminologies that you need to know and be able to distinguish between some related terminologies. The third is about governance, mainly the corporate governance, which is very important for you to understand, because internal audit in itself is one of the pillar of the good corporate governance practice. The fourth unit is about risk management, in which we discuss about what is risk management, its definition, and the process, and some of the frameworks which we have discussed in terms of risk management. Then we talk about controls in terms of types and frameworks, and 2 prominent frameworks which we have discussed relatively a bit in detail was COSO integrated internal control integrated framework, and we have discussed one was COSO and the other was COBIT. That was which we touch base upon in Unit 5. Now today we will be discussing about the controls application, and I will give you the snapshot of the entire syllabus in the next slide. Here we are, and this is a snapshot of the entire unit which we will be covering in our today's video. Basically, if you look into the entire unit or the chapter of the Claim CIA course, initially you will be overwhelmed when you look at this chapter 6, because first of all it's relatively lengthy, because of some examples, and the examples in itself is overwhelmingly complicated for someone who does not have a hardcore internal audit experience. So because of that, it might apparently give you an impression that it's a difficult chapter. However, in today's lecture you will come to know that it is very simple, and there are very few things that you need to grasp in the entire unit, and I hope that after this video that it will give you a good understanding of the entire key concepts. The unit is divided into, we can easily divide into 3 parts. The first is about flowcharts. Flowcharts is basically pictorial, or in a diagram, you can say, depiction of a process within a company. So we will be discussing about flowcharts in order to understand the different processes within the organization. We will be discussing about the accounting cycle and the controls associated with the accounting cycle. What is the accounting cycle? Generally, accounting cycle revolves around money, which means that when you make a sales, you receive money, and when you place an order or you purchase something or procure something, you have to make the payment, right? And you have employees to whom you have to make reimbursements or salary payments. So these are the critical area which they have covered, but there are more areas related to accounting controls which are not have been touch base upon within the unit, but that is not of our concern because they covered the most significant one. So that is the accounting cycle, and how we manage, record our numbers in terms of financial numbers, and the controls associated with that we will discuss in this chapter. One more element, the third part within this section, we can attribute to management controls. So there are accounting controls and there are management controls. So we will discuss what are the role of responsibility of the management and what are the other controls that the management plays in order to ensure that the entire organization is strong enough to fight against any adverse event, or to highlight if there is any error or issues within an activity. So that we will cover. So basically, to have a quick snapshot, we will be discussing about flowcharts, accounting cycle, and accounting controls, and management controls. So these are the 3 areas around which our entire discussion will revolve in this unit. So here we are with our first topic. The first question is, what is a flowchart? So flowchart is basically graphical presentation of or depiction of a process within the company. Similar to that, if I just to give you an example, if I ask you that if I start preparing or making a sketch on the paper and try to give you an idea that of a route, right? If you want to go from a destination A to B, I can mark that you will go straight, and then on the right, if I draw a small shop, there will be a shop, and then there will be maybe a college, and from the college you have to take the right turn. And if I keep on drawing that kind of a map, it is the same which we do in our companies as well. First time I was exposed to flowchart when I started my career with Ernst & Young, and I have been assigned an assignment where I have to draw all the flowcharts for the entire processes of a company. Um, we can draw it in different applications, but the one which we were told at that time was a Visio, Microsoft Visio. So in that, it is all the shapes are there, so you just have to drag and connect the pointers, that how the flow is going from top to down or right to left or left to right. So that we have to do. There are standards which we have to follow when we are drawing a process in a graphical representation, in order for anyone to understand that what these shapes mean. There are different shapes, so every shape, there are certain standard shapes that everyone use it. So there is a shape for starting a process, there is a shape for closing a process. When you have to make in a process a decision making, there is a shape. We will discuss all those shapes. Generally, you just need to have a good understanding of what are the types of flowcharts, and what the high level, or I really doubt that there would be a shape and MCQs related to shapes, but there might be a possibility. So you should just familiarize yourself, not memorizing it, but just to familiarize yourself with the different kind of shapes. So this is all about flowcharts. And in the why it is important to have a flowcharts, because when we go for an audit, we sit with the process owner, because we do not know anything about the process. So we ask certain documentation, maybe the policies and procedure, the people who are working, who they are, at how many people are working in that process, what their role and responsibilities are. That we gauge from job description as well, their titles, what is the input information and the output information, that what they do, what information they collect, how they process, and what are the outcome of their processing, and who benefit from that information, or from that activity. So that is what we understand. While doing that, we try to jot down a high level understanding, and then as a best practice, we also make a flow chart of the entire process. Sometimes the companies have a very detailed level of policies and procedure, and they have a flow chart attached to the policies and procedure, or embedded within the policies and procedure, in order for the reader to understand that how they have to perform that activity. If that is the case, it's awesome. But if that is not the case, then we draw a flow chart and see where things can go wrong and what are the controls that are protecting that process, right? So this is very important, that we see all the embedded controls and all the key risk factors and the associated controls, and also the KPIs, that how those activities are performing, and what are the set targets for them to achieve. So this is all very much easy when we put it in a flowchart, because if there is any missing link, we can identify. And as the saying goes, that a picture is better than 1,000 words, so it also helps for us to have a grip on the area as well. So these are some of the symbols for the starting. So this shape I have mentioned what each shape is representing, and these are relatively standard. So whoever uses any to depict graphical representation of any process within a company, they use these standard shapes for a certain activity within that process, because this is just the standard. So you don't confuse that it is not for this course related. It is used also on the practical at a professional level as well. So I don't personally know, other than a few triangles and square and some these geometrical shapes name. So you can figure it out what is the name of these. But generally, the second one is for the documents, the third one is for computer operations, wherever there is a computer. For example, if you are entering a data in the process, so you can use this. And along with these shapes, we also tags a very bare minimum word with a very bare minimum words, the description of activity as well, just to let know people that what is happening within the process, not a big sentences or paragraph, just a few words. And then for manual processing, you can use the 4-number shape. These are some other shapes. The arrow keys are used for different direction, that to show that from where one activity is starting and to where it is going. So it is also called nodes or pointers or links that you can use. So these are some standard shapes which you just look at it, familiarize yourself. You will not be asked to draw process in a Visio or on in the exam, so you don't have to worry about that. You just have to familiarize with the concept. So generally there are 4 types of flowcharts. The horizontal one I will be giving in the coming slides the actual representation of how these flowcharts are, just for your better understanding. But the horizontal one is depict the area of responsibility. And so if your main focus in the process is to know that who's doing what and what are their role and responsibility, you can use this format of flow chart, horizontal one. In vertical, specific action, it depicts about the computer program. So any activity that is happening within the computer or within the ERP environment, that you can use the help of vertical flowchart. Data flow diagrams, it is merely giving you representation or giving you an indication of how the data is flowing within the process. So that for that purpose it is. And process mapping, as goes with the name, that it depicts a client process. So here we are with the horizontal flowchart. So there is a start, and then there is an end, where you can see, let me see where is the end. So basically, if you look at this, there is a A in a circle. It means that this process is connecting with some another process. And okay, yes, there is another A. So the inventory master file is being updated at 2 points. So it shows it links with a AA. And I just want to look at if it shows somewhere it is ending. So here they haven't shown, because maybe the process is still continued and it is connected with some another process. But generally we have a start and the end. So if you can look at the shapes, it's similar to it's the same shapes for the same kind of activity which we have discussed in the earlier slide. So this is how it looks. You don't have to memorize. It is just they are giving you an example of that, how a flowcharts look like and how they have fit in the entire process within the flowchart. We call it horizontal because if you look at it from top, it starts, but it flow from the top to the bottom and keeps getting down. So this is why it is called horizontal. There is a very contrary to that is the vertical one, which is coming in the next one that we can also see. But horizontal is spread out throughout the process. So if you look at, we have a purchasing process, then we have a computer processing, then we have a receiving process, and then we have a inventory. So all the processes that the activity, because one activity might be connected to many other activities, so or many other processes. So in that case, if you look at it, started the computer but then it goes left to the purchasing, then goes receiving, then goes to inventory warehouse. So it moves around all horizontally. So that is one of the reason we call it horizontal. There is no science behind it, it's just how it is being depicted. That's how we call it horizontal or vertical. So this one is a vertical one, which they have given an example of a computer specific program in which they show from the top to bottom. So if you look at it's completely vertical, and the starting is at the top, the ending is at the bottom. And if you look at it is for a specific activity within a process. There isn't, you will find that the purchasing, the warehouse, and the other activities has been linked to it in a way that it falls under that particular process. In the previous one, any activity that falls in that particular process, it is being dragged at the left or at the right, correct? But here if you look at, it's simple starting and ending, and in the between all the information is being provided that how the activity has been performed. So this is a vertical one. Now we have a data flow diagram. The purpose of data flow diagram is to record or depict the information flow within a process or within an activity. Generally, if I am just want to jot down certain information while having a discussion with the process owner or interviewing a guy, I would rather prefer to use these diagrams because it just has a few shapes, and by this I can quickly jot down all the key flow of the information, rather than thinking of all the shapes and the processes. That is good for documentation and in a very formal setup, but this I can use informally for just recording and for my own personal understanding. So this is the process mapping. It's similar to, if you look at, is horizontal, but here what you will not find that the particular responsibility under each process is not being segregated. So here is a complete flow of a process, and yes, no, the diamond is the diamond shape is basically for decision making, and yes and y for represents yes, and represent no. So that is a basics of a few symbols, and it's simply used for mapping the process within a company. Here we are starting our next section within this unit about accounting cycle and associated controls. What is internal control? We have discussed this in very much detail in the previous units. However, to quickly run through or go through it quickly, it's basically internal controls are a system or a tool that help us to reduce the risk or to prevent any errors or wrongdoers from committing any fraud. So this is the purpose of internal control to manage the risk. Organization hierarchy are one of the important critical element in the internal control, because we divide the role and responsibility based on how we structured our organization based on the role and responsibilities, right? And one of the element that helps a lot or strengthen the internal control environment within the organization is segregation of duties. Segregation of duties means that we split one activity among different people, so one person cannot be able to commit any fraud. For example, if we assign one person in a purchase department who is able to raise a request, receive quotation, select the vendor, and make the approval on the payment, and is also responsible somehow for verifying the receipt of product. So for that person, there is a possibility that while giving so much of authority if he wants to, he might be able to commit a fraud, and which we might not be able to know for a very long time. In order to avoid him or to give him any loophole within the system, what we do that we segregate the duties. So, and the person who requests is separate from the person who review and approve. The person who review and approve is separate from the person who authorize the payment or receive the goods. So this is how we try to ensure that the internal controls are functioning properly. However, these controls are effective only when we talk about an individual and not allowing an individual to committing any wrongdoing or fraud. However, if a few people or the people who are responsible within that activity all colluded together and try to commit a fraud, then it is sometimes difficult or it takes time to discover such kind of wrongdoings. Accounting cycle and the associated controls, which we will be discussing in the which we will be discussing in this entire unit, is about how the money is received and how the money is spent. This is the basic theme within any organization. So our major concern is our all activity, whether we are giving us services or whether we are manufacturing our products, the whole controls are revolve around receiving the money and giving the money, and what the shareholders are interested that how their value is being protected and what is their value to in its regards to their profitability, right? So the key element in the accounting cycles are sales to customers, or sales to receivable, and then collection to cash or receivables to cash. Then there is another cycle of purchase to credit, when we buy something but buy on a credit, no, on a credit terms, and then when we have to make the payments. Also, we have employees within the company, so the payroll payments and all that is also one of the key element of the accounting cycle. So any control associated with these cycles are very much of a concern, and there is a lot of management attention on it, and we as an auditor also we look into these processes in our audit, and we see whether whenever an activity is happening, be it in terms of sales, be it in terms of purchases or payroll, we see that whether these controls are being deployed within the systems in order to avoid any negative outcome. Why? Because for example, we haven't made a sale but we recorded just to boost our sales numbers, so that we have to ensure that there are controls that the management does not do anything wrong. Or we have our sales return and we did not book in properly record, and what if we record a wrong number? Similar to that, we should not be paying more than what is supposed to be paying to our creditors, right? And what if we receive a wrong quantity of the material, and what if we overpaid for a product? What if we overpay to our employees or underpay to our employees? So there are a lot of controls, and these controls are not something you have to memorize. This is basically comes with the practice. Whenever you are an auditor, you study a lot of processes within the company. By default, you know that these are the key standard controls which apply within a company. Within most companies, there are certain unique controls specific to each entity, but there are general practices that is being followed. So this is all about the accounting cycle and accounting control. In the Glim book, you will find they have given you some big tables on accounting cycles and the associated control. You just have to familiarize yourself. So if an MCQs comes, so you know that what are the key controls in that activity, but you don't have to memorize. So here we are, some of the example of the management controls, which is also the third section of our unit. Within an organization, if you look at the way the organization is being structured and the role and responsibilities are being allocated to individuals within the company, this is all part of internal controls. Because first of all, as we have discussed earlier, that by assigning role and responsibility, we ensure that there is a segregation of duties, that if there is a possibility of giving or a possibility of an individual committing a fraud just because that he has excessive authority, so we segregate that authority. It could be either through deploying more people within a process, or through review and through audits, or through approvals. So this is also a way of segregating or overcoming compensatory controls when the process in itself are very critical. Again, when we assign authority to people, it is also easy to assess their performance and to see that where they are lacking behind, and if there is a need for improvement, then we can guide them. Also, by having those clear job and responsibility, we know that who's doing what, we can follow up, and there is a harmony within the company. When everyone knows what exactly they are supposed to do, then everyone is working toward the achievement of the overall organizational level. However, there might be a possibility, and there is a possibility in which in fact happened, that each individual have come up with their own area of competence, and they have their own area of responsibility. They carry out their work so diligently and so accurately that eventually, when we combine the efforts of all the people, we are able to achieve the company's level targets or strategic objectives. It is also important that when we have a lean structure, there is less bureaucracy. It's more easy to follow up on people, and overall there is less cost in terms of supervision and monitoring. So this is some brief description about how the structure within the organization role and responsibility help to enhance the internal control environment within an organization. The second management control is about policies. Policies you might hear more often with procedures as well. So procedures is the second step. Policies is the objective, what we want to achieve, and procedures are basically how we have to carry out the activity in order to achieve that objective, which is being stated in the policies. So policies are very important because these policies are derived from the strategic goals within the company. It also encompasses the laws and the regulation associated with that activity or with that company, and we want everyone to abide by these policies. Is in a simple way to understand is similar to how we follow the rules or how we follow the law. So it is the law or jurisprudence of a company. A policies is quite often I've seen that within the company there are two major issues. Either they do not have policies for all area of the business, or these policies are outdated. So when they are outdated, we need to update these policies to reflect the current circumstances, because organizations are very dynamic and fluid. They change over the time. Their primary objectives change sometime. Their operations change, And what happened in the company that since no one gave too much attention to the policies, it remained in a locker or in a separate shelves, and no one bothers to review that whether these policies actually reflect the current stage and the current status of the organization and the way people are working. So policies are a living document. It needs to be updated, and the peoples need to ensure that they read and they abide by these policies and procedure, because these policies in itself are a control phenomenon, a control mechanism by which we ensure that no one do anything wrong, and we are able to achieve our operational level targets, and eventually it leads to achieve the strategic level targets within the company. Uh, the next management control is the procedure. Similar to the policies, the procedures are the action plan, which give us that what are the steps that we are supposed to take in order to ensure that we will be able to achieve our objective, which is policies. These procedures, again similar to the policies, needs to be updated as when it is required. um, there is a trick, or there is a thing that needs to be taken into care when drafting the procedures within the company, that it should not be so detail oriented that it defeat the purpose of people making or taking the right action. We don't want people to be so robotic that without even taking a realization of whether the action they are taking is in the best interest of the company or not. However, it should be balanced enough to let know people that what steps they have to take in order to protect the company interest, but at the same time they are free to use their human judgment as well. We have exception policies for that, and we have exception procedures for that within the company. um, Again, these procedures should not be overlapping, and there should we try to achieve a perfection, but it's always continuous process, where we try and see wherever there is a gap in the procedures, we try to fill those gaps. If we have a duplication, then we try to avoid those duplication. So it's an ongoing process, where the process owner themselves come up with that there are certain things in the procedure which has been provided in the document which does not conform or does not serve the purpose. So it's something where the individual can also have some kind of a leverage and discretion to use or these procedures as given in the document, or they can use their decision making and also highlight if there is any need for improvement. However, the policy matters are very strict in nature. You hardly have any discretion, and if you want to raise your voice against any policy, then there is a formal procedure where you have to address or where you have to escalate those issues, and it goes through a very stringent approval process. However, in the procedures you have some flexibility, as long as you are there to protect the company interests and you are able to achieve the overall desired objective of that activity. Two more critical components of the management control is about human being, how we manage the human capital within the company, personnel or the employees of the company, and any controls related to accounting. And the HR related or the human resource related controls are basically embedded in that the way we hire the people, the way we treat them, and the way we let them go within the company should all be done fairly. We hire right competent people, we train them, we groom them, we assign them responsibility, we make them accountable for the achievement of the goals, and then we also evaluate their performance. We give them feedback where it is required, we provide them with the training opportunities where it is required. So this is all part of the internal control framework and that allows the company to enhance its control environment. Accounting related controls are basically more related to the recording of the transactions, where we ensure that any transactions that is being any transaction that has been executed within the company is fairly recorded, and there are controls associated in the entire accounting system. Generally, it is in computer systems. And everyone knows what their role and responsibilities are, who's responsible to review, who's responsible for approve, and these are the people who are reviewing and approving those transactions and recording with the right numbers. So this is all about the accounting related controls. Budgeting is very important within any company. Budget is basically where we pre-plan and we allocate the resources and see that who will be getting a small pie of the entire resources, and setting the targets and looking at those targets, whether they are achieving those targets they are or not optimally within the organization. So budgets are very important, and the control associated with budgets are very important, because we don't want people to under budget or over budget, or keep a buffer for themselves within the budget in order to make them relax while achieving those targets. So we just wanted them to be fairly represented and ensure that there is more efficiency within the company, be it in terms of getting more revenue to the company, or doing things in a more cheaper way and without having too much of wastages. Reporting is also one of the key management controls because we have different people and assigned different responsibilities, and there are people who are being given the responsibility to supervise certain people, so they all we wanted them to reflect upon that what they are doing is basically as intended and as required and as per the objective. And these reports needs to be on a timely basis, meaningful, accurate, economical, because any misleading information in these reports would lead to wrong decision making for those who are receiving those reports. So it is very important, and that the controls related to reporting as well needs to be well planned within the company. Some other management control assertions are occurrence that these are a few controls which we as an internal auditor we ensure in any transaction that whether these assertions are available or not. For example, whenever an activity has been recorded within the company, that a sales has been done or a purchases has been done, we ensure as an auditor that the occurrence is actually happened within the company, that if we made a purchases, then a product has been received in the inventory within the company. If we made a sale, so we receive a cash from a customer, or we have a liability towards a customer. So the customer has a liability towards us. So these assertions we test existence in terms of physical existence, or it is being provided for within the company in terms of writing, and that document or that evidence is available. Completeness in terms of that whatever we are showing in our records is basically the exact amount or the quantity of activity that has been performed. So we don't want that the numbers is overstated or understated. So these are the assertions which generally auditors, internal be it internal or external, we look into these assertions. So this is also part of management controls. Last but not the least slide of our presentation, the role and responsibilities are very important whenever we are talking about controls. The BOD, let's go through quickly. BOD, commitment to integrity and ethical values, needs to have a business acumen role. All of the board committees are important. So basically the board of directors at the very top level are responsible for internal controls by setting the right atmosphere within the company, the right tone within the company. They have to be the one who led other people by example, that they are very much concerned about that everyone do the right way, the things in the right way. So this is how it is being cascaded or reflected upon within the organization culture. The management are the people who take that philosophy and ensure that all the tangible work of internal controls are being implemented within the company by assigning right role and responsibilities, having proper reporting structure within the company, performance management or performance appraisal management within the company, variance analysis, risk management, internal audit, internal controls. So the management is responsible to ensure that we have all these kind of safeguards within the company to achieve the desired objective. Internal auditor are also responsible. We are responsible because we provide an independent assurance on activities of the company, whether they are achieving their desired objective or not. But also, we uh, we we also suggest them how to improve, how to minimize the cost, and also let the organization at times, if there is a potential future risk to any of the activity within the company or overall to the organization, and see what are the controls or the key measures that the organization has taken. So in that regard, internal auditors have a very important role to play. And other personnel are, I mean, each and every individual is within the company is responsible for their area of responsibility, that they do their job in the good faith, with the right knowledge and skills, and with all honesty. So this is how an organization survive and thrive. So everyone is responsible for internal controls, but there are certain layers within the management that have more responsibility to overtake in terms of internal control. So here we reach to the end of this lecture, and I hope now you have a good understanding of how you can have different types of control and how these controls are embedded within the processes within the organization. And that's how the name of the chapter is being associated, controls application. If you benefit from these lectures, please do like, subscribe, and share with other people as well, so more people can get benefit. And I hope and I wish you good luck in your CIA course preparation. This was the second last unit of the GLIM course, and soon I will be recording the last lecture. And after that, I wish you good luck and hope that meanwhile you do a lot of practice of MCQs, because these MCQs are very much important. Knowledge without practice or practice without knowledge, both are detrimental and could harm you. So you have to be very mindful about and do your job in the best possible manner. And here I'll end this video and hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.